Okay guys, here's a little video demonstration on how to solve some of these problems on this worksheet. So if you have a worksheet with you, just make sure that you write what I have written on the top. So the 22.4 liters equals 1 mole conversion. And we're going to need the information in order to help solve our problem. Alright, so let's look at number 1. So remember, we need to underline what the question's asking, and we need to circle the information given to us that will help us solve the problem. So the question says, what volume of hydrogen is necessary to react with 5 liters of nitrogen to produce ammonia? So we're going to underline the first part of that question. It's saying what volume of hydrogen is necessary to react. So we're going to go ahead and box the hydrogen in the reaction. If you keep reading, it also tells us we have 5 liters of nitrogen, so we need a box of nitrogen. So once we have the two compounds that we are focused on identified, we can go ahead and cross out the product at this time. We're not going to need it to solve this problem. So after I identify the two compounds I want to go ahead and write the ratio, the molar ratio. So if you look, the ratio is 1 mole of N2 for every 3 moles of H2. So our ratio is 1 to 3. Now, if you recall, this is a 4-step problem. So let's go ahead and look at step number 1. Step number 1 is we're going to write our first part of our problem. So we're going to look at the information they gave us, and that will be the clue that tells us what we write down first. So we're going to write down 5 liters of nitrogen first. And I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1. And that's step 1 in our conversion. Alright. Step 2 is where we need to look at this conversion factor right here. So we want to get rid of the liters of nitrogen. So we're going to put liters of nitrogen down here. And we want to convert it to moles. So we're going to put moles of nitrogen on top. Now the conversion is just 1 to 22.4. So we're going to go ahead and write that. And we can go ahead and cancel out liters of nitrogen. And we're halfway there. So step 3 is probably the most important step. It's where we write our ratio. So we want to get rid of moles of N2, so we'll put that in the denominator. And we want to get moles of hydrogen, so we're going to write that in our numerator. And the ratio is 1 to 3. And now we can cross out moles of nitrogen. And finally, step 4 is kind of like step 2, but in reverse. So we want to get rid of the moles of hydrogen, so we'll put that in the denominator, and we want to get liters of hydrogen. So moles is 1 to 22.4. We look at that same conversion factor. Now we can cross out moles of H2. So let me zoom in. We've gone through the 4 steps, and we crossed out units as we went along, and we're left with liters of hydrogen, which is what we want. Now all we need to do to solve this is multiply all our numerators together and multiply all our denominators together and get a final fraction, and then simplify it. Now to make this a little easier, if you notice that step 2 and step 4 are almost identical, but they're opposite, meaning there's 22.4 on the numerator, 22.4 on the denominator. Since this is kind of lined up like this, we can simply just cancel them out. So we don't have to really include them into our calculation. So once we do that, our calculation becomes a lot easier, and we can even do it in our head. So we're going to end up multiplying 5 times 3, and that will give us 15. And then 1 times 1 times 1 is simply 1. And we just simplify the fraction, 15 over 1, and that will give us 15. And then our last unit is liters of hydrogen, so we need to include that. And that is our final answer. Now, there is a little trick to this process. If you look closely, step number 2 and step number 4 are equal and opposite. We just have those steps there in order to get the correct units at the end. But if numerically, we don't need them there. So numerically, we can actually skip step 2 and step 4 completely, meaning that we only need to do the first step and the third step, and we can get the proper answer. So let's look how we do that for number 2. So in number 2, we are asked to find the volume of our product that is made in the first reaction in question 1. So we have to look back at this reaction right here. So remember, we were given 5 liters of nitrogen, but in question number 2, it's asking how many liters, or what's the volume of the product that will be made. So in this case, for number 2, we don't need to look at that reactant, and we just compare N2 and 2NH3. So if we do that really fast, let's go ahead and write the ratio. So the ratio between N2 and NH2 is simple. It's just 1 mole of N2 for every 2 moles of NH3. And we use that for step 3. We use a ratio for step 3. So in this example, let's just do step 1 and step 3. So the first step is to write the number we're given. So if you recall, the number is 5 liters of nitrogen. So I'm just going to write 5 liters of N2 over 1. And this is step 1. But instead of going through step 2, I'm going to skip just to step 3. So what you can do is you want to get rid of the nitrogen. So you need to put nitrogen down here, N2. And you want to convert it to ammonia, which is NH3. And we're going to go ahead and put that right here. I know I'm not going to put moles, but I'm just going to put their molar ratio. So just the coefficients. So since we wrote down the ratio, we can simply just move the numbers over to the right. So there's 1 mole of N2, and there's 2 moles of NH3. Now what we can do is we can cancel out the N2s. And all we have left is liters and NH3, which is the exact unit that I need. And I simply just multiply across and simplify. So 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. And if you simplify this fraction, you just get 10. And this is your answer, 10 liters of NH3. Now, I can go ahead and do 3, 4, and 5, but I'm going to go ahead and stop right there because I want to see if you can do that in class. So that's how I did number 1 and number 2. It's up to you if you want to do the full process like I did number 1 for number 3, 4, and 5, or you can try to do the shortened example and the shortened process that I showed in number 2. Both should get you the correct answer. The only thing that number 2, the short way requires, is that you ensure that the units are correct. Because remember, if you just give me the number and no unit, I'm not going to have any context, or I won't know what you mean. So in order to get the fully correct answer, you need to include a number plus the unit. Okay. All right. Well, if you have any questions, just let me know in class, and thanks for watching.